The for sale sign came down on a Tuesday in April. Tobias Renner unloaded his truck alone, a toolbox, 2 duffels, a folded wheelchair he no longer needed, and a black Labrador named Jubal who sniffed the maple sapling and sat down in the gravel. The cul-de-sac was quiet. A white sedan rolled past at the speed of a parade float. The driver did not wave. Tobias noted the sedan. He did not note the man yet. By the end of his first week, Tobias had repaired the ramp, replaced the mailbox, and planted 3 rose bushes along the side fence. Jubal wore his service vest when they walked the sidewalk. Neighbors waved from porches. A woman in reading glasses across the fence introduced herself as Marisol. She brought a plate of shortbread and said the cul-de-sac was quiet mostly, then paused long enough that he understood the word mostly was load-bearing. The first violation appeared taped to the screen door on day 9. Yellow carbon copy paper. Neat block printing. Grass exceeds permitted height by 1/2 inch. Signed Warner O'Kelly, board president. A fine of $25. Tobias read it twice. He had mowed the lawn 2 days earlier. He measured the grass with a ruler, 2 3/4 inches. He folded the notice into quarters and set it on the kitchen counter. Warner O'Kelly patrolled the neighborhood in his white sedan every morning between 7 and 8. Tucked polo, pressed khakis, laminated pad on the passenger seat, a mechanical pencil clipped to the sun visor. He measured grass with a folding carpenter rule. He photographed trash cans left at the curb past 11. He kept a spreadsheet at home on his kitchen table, color-coded by severity of infraction, cross-indexed by address. He called this stewardship. Nobody had ever asked him to. The second violation came on day 14. Trash receptacle color non-compliant. Section 4.2. Black is not among the permitted approved grays. $50 fine. The trash can had come with the house. Tobias pulled a chair into the kitchen, sat down across from the binder he had not yet opened, and pulled the cover back. 412 pages of bylaws, amendments, and meeting minutes. Jubal laid his head on Tobias's foot. They began reading at page 1. Marisol leaned on the fence that evening. She said Warner had done this to the last 3 owners of Tobias's house. One family broke their lease and left. One widower paid every fine for 2 years before selling. The third was a young couple who filed a complaint and were told by Warner himself that the board had reviewed it and dismissed it. Marisol did not know if that was true. Tobias asked if the HOA kept meeting minutes. She said in theory yes. Tobias requested the last 5 years of HOA meeting minutes through the community portal. He received a PDF 3 days later containing 27 pages. 5 years of monthly meetings should have produced 60. He opened the binder to the governance section and read the clause aloud to Jubal. Regular meetings shall be held monthly with a quorum of at least 4 board members, and written minutes posted within 30 days. He wrote 27 on the legal pad. He wrote 60 beneath it. He circled neither. The third violation was for Jubal. Unapproved animal on common area during daylight hours. Section 7.1. $75 fine. Jubal had been sleeping on Tobias's own front porch. Warner had photographed him through the screen door. Tobias read the violation twice, walked to the kitchen, pulled the binder open to section 7.1, and underlined the sentence that said service animals performing trained tasks are exempt from all pet restrictions pursuant to federal law. He folded the notice into the binder as a bookmark. On the sidewalk the next morning, Warner stopped his sedan and rolled down the window. He said that dog was a liability and that the neighborhood had standards. He said people like you move in and expect the rules not to apply. He said if Tobias could not control his animal, he should consider relocating to somewhere less structured. Jubal sat perfectly still in his service vest. Tobias thanked Warner for his concern, wished him a good morning, and kept walking. He did not raise his voice. He did not break stride. Tobias came home, sat down at the kitchen table, and wrote 3 words at the top of the legal pad. Read the binder. He wrote the date beneath it. He did not write Warner's name. He did not write revenge. He opened to page 1 of the governance section and began again. Jubal settled onto the dog bed by the back door. The pendant lamp buzzed faintly. Outside, the sedan rolled past the cul-de-sac one more time and kept going. Over the next 4 weeks, the violations arrived on a schedule. Tuesday mornings, taped to the screen door. Hedge height, mailbox flag angle, porch light wattage, car parked facing wrong direction, decorative flag not on approved list. The fines accumulated into the hundreds. Tobias paid none of them. He filed each notice into a labeled folder marked received. He did not contest any of them yet. He kept reading. Page 180, page 240, page 310. He found the first real thing on page 267. Reserve fund contributions shall be deposited quarterly into a separate interest-bearing account dedicated to capital repairs. He pulled the most recent financial report. There was no reserve account line, only an operating account. He read the bylaw again. He read the report again. He wrote reserve missing on the legal pad. He underlined it once. He did not underline it twice. Marisol brought coffee the next morning and looked at the legal pad. She said her husband had asked about reserves at a meeting 3 years ago and been told the matter was under review by the treasurer. She asked who the treasurer was. Tobias said Warner. She set the coffee down slowly. She said Warner had been treasurer and president both for the last 7 years because nobody else ran. Tobias filed his first formal complaint through the community portal on a Sunday evening. He did not mention the violations taped to his door. He cited Section 3.1 on meeting frequency and attached a count of posted minutes over the last 5 years, 27 of a required 60. He cited Section 9.4 on reserve fund separation and attached the latest financial report. He signed it in full. He did not copy any neighbor. He did not post it anywhere. He clicked submit and closed the laptop. The portal acknowledged receipt with an auto reply. The complaint would be reviewed at the next board meeting, or within 30 days, whichever came later. Tobias wrote the date on the legal pad. He wrote 30 days beside it. He wrote nothing else. He put on his work shirt the next morning, loaded his tools into the truck, and drove to a job site across town. Jubal rode in the passenger seat with his head out the window. The cul-de-sac receded in the mirror. Warner's sedan did not appear that day. Warner received a copy of the complaint through the portal on Monday morning. He read it standing at his kitchen counter. His face did not move. He walked to his office and opened the spreadsheet of violations and scrolled to the Renner address. He added a new line, quarrelsome homeowner. He highlighted it in red. He did not file the complaint in the board's official queue. He saved the document to his personal drive and closed the lid. 30 days passed. No response from the board. Tobias filed a second complaint citing Section 10 on grievance procedures and the mandatory 30-day response window. He attached the portal timestamp of his first filing. He added a third complaint the same day concerning combined officer roles and the bylaw prohibition against a single member holding both president and treasurer without annual reapproval. He attached the last 7 years of officer lists. He submitted all 3. He closed the laptop. He took Jubal for a walk. Marisol mentioned the reserve fund question to 3 neighbors over the next 2 weeks. The Bukowskis at number 11. The widow Hargrove at number 18. Dmitry Sasko, retired gas technician, at number 6. All 3 said they had wondered. None had asked. Marisol said asking might not change anything. Dmitry said in his experience asking only worked when more than one person asked. He still had the flyer from the last annual meeting. He had kept it for reasons he could not name. The board finally scheduled a response hearing for the following month. The agenda was posted in the clubhouse window on a single sheet of paper. Warner chaired. The 2 vice members were his longtime friends. The meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon, a time most working homeowners could not attend. Tobias took the afternoon off. So did Marisol. So did Dmitry. So did 6 others they had not asked to come. Warner opened the meeting by reading a prepared statement. The board had reviewed the Renner complaints and found them procedurally premature. The meeting count discrepancy was an archival oversight. The reserve fund matter was internal and not subject to homeowner review. He proposed moving to new business. He did not look at Tobias. He did not look at the 7 homeowners now seated in the folding chairs. He reached for the gavel. Tobias stood before the gavel fell. He said he had a point of order. He opened the binder on the chair beside him to a tabbed page. He read aloud Section 3.1. Regular meetings shall be held monthly with written minutes posted within 30 days. He said the posted records showed 27 meetings over the last 5 years. He said under Section 11.2 any homeowner could present documentary evidence at any open meeting. He said he would like to do that now. He did not shout. He read. For 40 minutes he read the bylaws out loud. Meeting frequency. Reserve fund separation. Combined officer prohibition. Grievance timelines. Audit requirements every 3 years. None had been performed in 9. He set the financial reports on the table in front of the board. He set the meeting attendance log. He set the officer roster showing Warner listed as both president and treasurer for 7 consecutive years with no reapproval vote. He did not editorialize. He returned to his seat. Jubal had not moved. Marisol rose next. She said she had been a homeowner in this community for 11 years. She said she had never once been shown a reserve fund statement. She asked the board to produce one now. Warner said the matter was under ongoing internal review. Marisol said ongoing for how long? A vice member on Warner's left cleared his throat and said the meeting should be adjourned. and reconvened with legal counsel present. Warner did not answer. He reached for the gavel and lowered it softly this time. The meeting adjourned without a vote. No new business conducted. The agenda remained taped to the clubhouse door for another week. Tobias walked home with Jubal. Marisol walked with him as far as her porch. Dimitri walked with them to the corner and said only one word. Good. He did not elaborate. He turned up his own walk and went inside. Warner drove home that night alone. His sedan pulled into his driveway between the painted lines. He sat for a long moment with the engine running. He looked at the spotless concrete in front of him. He looked at the flag on the pole. He turned the engine off. He did not get out for a while. When he did, he walked inside and closed the front door behind him and stood in the hallway without turning on the light. The spreadsheet on his home computer sat open. The cursor blinked on the Renner row. On Monday, 3 homeowners requested copies of the bylaws through the portal. By Wednesday, the number was 9. By Friday, it was 21. Someone had scanned Tobias's tabbed binder pages and emailed them to the community list. It had not been Tobias. It had not been Marisol. Nobody ever confirmed who. The bylaws, unread for a decade, suddenly circulated in every inbox on the cul-de-sac. Warner issued no new violations that week, or the next, or the next. The yellow pad sat untouched on his passenger seat. His sedan still rolled through the cul-de-sac in the mornings, but the mechanical pencil stayed clipped to the visor. He kept driving past the Renner house. Jubal lay on the porch. Tobias waved once, not cruelly, not warmly. Warner did not wave back. He drove on. Tobias made tea in the morning the way he always did. He stood at his kitchen window and watched Marisol tend her raised cedar beds across the fence. Jubal pressed his flank against Tobias's calf. The pendant lamp buzzed softly. The 4-inch binder sat closed on the table. Tobias opened it once a week now, not every day. He drank his tea. He did not think about Warner. He thought about the roses he still needed to mulch. A county records request returned to Tobias with a thick envelope of documents. Past filings of the HOA's annual statements. A non-profit corporation registration 7 years expired. A required annual corporate filing not submitted in 4 years. He sat at the table and laid the records out in a neat grid. 9 separate filings missed. 2 of them carried administrative dissolution notices dated last October. He photographed the grid with his phone. He emailed the photo to Marisol. He did not attach a message. Marisol printed the photo and brought it to a community coffee meetup she had organized on her own porch the following Saturday. 11 neighbors came. They passed the sheet around. Most of them had never seen the state seal on an HOA document before. One man asked if this meant the association was not actually legally an association anymore. Marisol said she was not a lawyer. She said she was going to find out. Warner spent Saturday morning alone at his kitchen table. He had seen the gathering on Marisol's porch through his front window. He had watched the neighbors arrive and had counted them under his breath. 11. He had sat down at his spreadsheet and tried to add new lines. His hands did not cooperate. He pushed the laptop away. He looked at the kettle on his stove. He had forgotten he put it on. The water had boiled off. The coil glowed dry beneath the empty metal. On Tuesday, the 2 vice members of the board submitted their resignations. The emails were short. Both cited personal time constraints. Both were sent within an hour of each other. The resignations were forwarded to the full community list per bylaw. Tobias read them in his kitchen. He wrote 2 names and the word resigned beside each one on the legal pad. He did not underline. He did not circle. Warner called an emergency board meeting. He was the only remaining board member. He sat alone at the long laminate table in the clubhouse. He read a statement to an empty room about continuity of leadership and the necessity of experienced stewardship. A single folding chair in the front row held Dimitri Sasko, who had come because he had nothing else to do on a Tuesday afternoon. Dimitri listened in silence. When Warner finished, Dimitri stood up, nodded once, and left without speaking. Tobias did not attend the emergency meeting. He was mulching his roses that afternoon. Marisol waved from her porch. Amaro Lentz, a physical therapist she had introduced Tobias to, had come by to look at a knee brace Tobias had been meaning to update. Amaro sat on the front step with a small tin of receipts and a cup of tea. The 3 of them spoke about nothing in particular. The clubhouse was 3 streets away and felt further. Warner refreshed his email that evening. No new arrivals. No one had responded to the emergency meeting recap he had posted at 5. He refreshed it again at 6. At 7, he stopped counting at 8:30. The phone screen stayed dark. He set the phone face down on the counter. He turned it face up again. He set it face down. He did neither for a full minute, and then walked to the window and watched the cul-de-sac darken outside. A retired attorney 3 streets over, a woman named Camila who had never before attended an HOA meeting, offered pro bono review of the state filings. She returned to the community list within a week with a one-page memo. The HOA had lost its corporate standing. The board had no legal authority to collect dues, issue fines, or enforce bylaws until the association restored its filings. She signed the memo. Camila Torrentis, Esquire, retired. It circulated in 200 inboxes by nightfall. Warner read the memo at his kitchen table. His hand shook once. He set the phone down. He looked at the fridge. He opened it. 3 condiment bottles, a sleeve of crackers, a half loaf of bread he could not remember buying. He closed the fridge. He stood with his hand on the handle for a long time. He did not eat. He went upstairs and did not come back down until morning. A new email appeared on the community list 2 days later. It was signed Tobias Renner. It was 3 paragraphs. He proposed that the homeowners call a special meeting to elect an interim board, restore the state filings, and begin a full audit of the reserve fund. He offered to chair a reading committee to go through the bylaws clause by clause with any homeowner who wanted to join. He did not mention Warner's name. He attached a draft agenda. 43 homeowners replied within 12 hours. All said yes. The special meeting happened on a Saturday morning in the clubhouse. Every folding chair was filled. Neighbors stood along the back wall. Warner sat alone at the long laminate table, in the president's chair, reading the prepared opening from a sheet of paper that trembled slightly in his hand. He paused twice to breathe. He said that the board welcomed homeowner input, and in the spirit of continuity would be presenting a strategic plan for the coming quarter. A voice from the back row said, "We will hear your resignation first." A motion was made from the floor for a vote of no confidence. Seconded within seconds. Warner lifted his hand as if to object and found he could not think of what to say. The vote was called. 41 in favor, 3 abstentions, 0 opposed. Warner set his paper down on the laminate table. He stood without speaking. He walked the length of the room past the chairs and out the door. The spring latch clicked behind him. The meeting continued. An interim board was elected before the lunch break. 3 new members. 1 former board member had been invited to run. He declined and endorsed the slate. Tobias was asked to chair the bylaw reading committee. He accepted. He asked that his committee be explicitly advisory, not binding, so that no single homeowner could dictate policy ever again. The motion carried unanimously. He sat back down. Jubal rested his head on his boot. Warner did not return to the clubhouse after that Saturday. He did not attend any follow-up meeting. He did not serve on any committee. His sedan continued to pull in and out of his driveway between the painted lines. The laminated pad on the passenger seat began to curl at one corner from the sun. The mechanical pencil stayed clipped to the visor. He drove out of the cul-de-sac in the mornings and returned in the afternoons. He waved at no one. His wife moved out in the fall. Neighbors noted the small moving van on a Thursday afternoon. 2 boxes and a dresser. A friend drove her. Warner stood on the porch in his pressed khakis as it pulled away. He raised a hand. She did not raise one back. The chair where she used to sit on the wrought iron bench on the porch sat empty. He did not move the chair. He did not sit in it either. An envelope from the state arrived for the reconstituted HOA that month. The filings had been accepted. Corporate standing restored. Reserve account opened with a proper segregation. The interim board published the first audited financial report in 9 years. $311,000 in reserve funds that had been commingled with operating over the last 7. No criminal charges were filed. The funds were moved and accounted for. Warner's name appeared in the audit as a prior officer. Only there. Warner began appearing at the clubhouse again by the new year, not for board meetings, for the small alcoholics in recovery group that met in the side room on Wednesday nights. Marisol told Tobias about it quietly, not as gossip. She said her cousin had mentioned it. She said she was not sharing it to shame anyone. Tobias said he would not have wanted to be told either. They left it at that and did not speak of Warner again for many weeks. Tobias finished the mulch on the roses that spring. Jubal got a new collar. Amaro fitted the knee brace. Marisol's tomatoes outgrew the cedar beds and climbed the shared fence. The neighborhood potluck in late May happened in the clubhouse room, now recarpeted and repainted with reserve fund money. Tobias brought a pan of cornbread. People he did not know by name thanked him for something they did not fully explain. He said they had done it themselves. He meant it. A letter came to Tobias in early summer, handwritten, small careful block letters, postmarked from 2 towns over. The return address read W. O'Kelly. Tobias set the envelope on the kitchen table beside the binder. He did not open it that day. He did not open it the next day either. Jubal lay at his feet. The pendant lamp buzzed. The binder sat where it had sat for a year. He opened it on the 3rd evening. A single page. Not an apology. Not quite. Warner wrote that he had been a man who confused authority with service for most of his life. He wrote that he did not expect forgiveness and was not asking for it. He wrote that he was in a program and working a step that required him to name the specific people he had harmed. Tobias Renner, Jubal by extension. He signed his full name. He did not include a phone number. The letter ended there. Tobias folded the letter carefully along its original creases. He did not reply. He did not throw it away. He slid it into the back pocket of the binder behind the tabs section on grievance procedure. He closed the binder. He set the kettle on the stove. He sat with Jubal at the back door and watched the evening light move across the yard. He thought about the man who had written the letter. He did not think about him for long. Warner continued in the program alone. Neighbors sometimes saw him walking on the sidewalk in the evening, the polo replaced by a plain t-shirt, no laminated pad, no pressed khakis. He nodded at people he used to fine. Most nodded back. Some did not. He did not press for more. Marisol saw him in the parking lot of the grocery store one afternoon in July and found that she was faintly glad to see him. She did not stop to speak. Neither did he. At the fall community meeting, the new board presented the first full year of audited financials. The reserve fund had grown by $16,000 in interest alone. The new bylaw committee, chaired by Tobias, proposed 12 revisions drawn from the original binder's inconsistencies. 11 passed. 1 was sent back for further discussion. Tobias declined a nomination for president. He said he was comfortable chairing the reading committee and wished to remain there. The nomination passed to Marisol. She accepted. Tobias planted a second maple sapling in the front yard that November. He staked it with the same green tape he had used on the first. Jubal sniffed the new tree and then lay down in the grass beside it. Marisol brought 2 mugs of coffee and a plate of muffins. Amaro came by with a folding chair. Dimitri walked past with his cloth bag of tools and raised a hand. Tobias raised his back. The cul-de-sac was quiet in the way neighborhoods are when nothing needs to happen. Warner's house went on the market that winter. A sign went up in the lawn on a gray Tuesday. He was seen in his driveway loading boxes into a rental van. His wife did not come help. A nephew from out of state drove down for the weekend. The white sedan was sold separately. A young mechanic from 3 streets overpaid cash for it and drove it away that same afternoon. The driveway sat empty. The painted lines stayed. Marisol heard he had moved to a small apartment 2 counties over near the Veterans Hospital. He had started volunteering there in the intake office on Tuesday afternoons. He helped new arrivals fill out their paperwork. He read the forms slowly and carefully with them line by line. He did not mention his old job. He did not mention his years as a steward of standards. He helped. He went home. He came back the next Tuesday. The neighbors who heard of it did not discuss it with each other. Tobias did not follow these developments closely. He heard about the apartment from Marcelal and nodded. He heard about the VA from a neighbor across the way and nodded. He did not ask. He did not object. He wished the man well in a silent, indifferent way that asked for no more of his own energy. The binder on the kitchen table was closed most days now. He opened it once a month for the reading committee. That was enough. A second handwritten letter arrived a year after the first. Shorter. 3 sentences. Warner wrote that he had completed the amends step. He wrote that Tobias had done the cul-de-sac a service by knowing how to read. He wrote that he did not need a reply and would not send another letter. Tobias filed this one behind the first one in the back of the binder. He did not reply. He did not feel the need to. The cul-de-sac held a small block party in the spring. Children rode bikes in loops around the island in the middle. Grill smoke drifted through the shared yards. A folding table held a printed copy of the bylaws, open to a tabbed page that read Section 3.1, a small homage arranged by Marisol. Nobody made a speech. Tobias carried the coffee urn in from the kitchen and set it on a side table. Jubal lay in the shade of the new maple. The day passed slowly and gently. Someone, not Tobias, placed a single copy of the bylaw binder in a glass case mounted to the clubhouse wall that summer. It was the original reading copy Tobias had used with his tabs and his pencil underlines, still visible on many pages. A small plaque beneath read, "Property of the homeowners, to be opened by any of them at any time." Tobias did not know who put it there. He did not ask. He liked that he did not know. Warner visited the clubhouse once, on a Tuesday morning, when no meeting was scheduled and the lights were off. He walked in alone. Marisol saw him from her yard and did not follow. He stood in front of the glass case for a long time, his hands clasped behind his back, his cardigan loose on his thinner frame. He read the plaque. He did not touch the glass. He left without speaking to anyone. He did not come back. Tobias heard about the visit from a third neighbor later that week. He did not ask for details. He did not need any. He thought briefly about the man who had taped a yellow carbon copy notice to his screen door for walking his service dog across his own porch. He thought about the afternoon the sedan had rolled past at the speed of a parade float. He did not feel anger. He felt, if anything, a small, worn-out tenderness for the patience that had grown up inside him during all of it. The reading committee met the second Thursday of every month in the clubhouse. Tobias chaired the meetings in the old president's chair at the long laminate table. He did not open the meetings with a statement. He opened them by asking who wanted to read first. Neighbors took turns with the bylaw sections. They discussed what they read. They proposed small amendments every quarter. Most passed. Some did not. Nobody wrote anything down in red ink. On a warm Saturday in August, Tobias and Jubal walked the full perimeter of the cul-de-sac, past Marisol's raised beds now overflowing with tomatoes, past Dimitri's neatly kept porch, past the Bukowskis and the widow Hargrove, past the young couple who had bought Warner's old house. They had a small child who called Jubal by name from their driveway. They had not known the previous owner. They had not asked. He stopped at the top of the driveway of the house that had been Warner's. He did not go up. He looked at the cream siding. It looked at the cream siding, Holnichi Figminiliar, and the black shutters, and the wrought iron bench, still there on the porch. The new owners had replaced the empty seat with a potted fern. It filled the space. It did not argue with the space. Tobias looked for a long moment. He turned to go. Jubal stood and followed. They walked home the short way. That night, Tobias sat at his kitchen table with Jubal at his feet and the binder in front of him. He did not open it. He rested his hands flat on its cover. He thought about the first violation taped to the screen door. Grass exceeds permitted height by 1/2 inch. He thought about how quiet he had kept during the 4 months of reading. He thought about how nothing he had done had been invented. It had all been already written. He had only learned it aloud. In the spring of the following year, the community association opened a small library corner in the clubhouse. The glass case moved to a new wall beside it. The binder stayed on display. A volunteer sign-up sheet for reading committee hung on the adjacent corkboard. 8 neighbors signed up in the first week. Tobias declined a nomination to a second term chairing the committee. He said it was someone else's turn now. He meant it. The nomination passed to Amaro Lentz. Amaro accepted with a small practice nod. Tobias returned to his own work full-time that summer. Commercial carpentry on a new hospital annex across town. Long days. Clean job sites. The truck rattled home each evening with Jubal in the passenger seat. The roses in the front yard bloomed the second week of June. The second maple doubled its trunk diameter. Marisol's tomatoes climbed over the shared fence again. The cul-de-sac ran itself mostly. That was the point. The 4-inch binder sat in its glass case in the clubhouse library corner. It was opened by 6 different homeowners over the course of the year. Not for enforcement, for reading. Someone checked a clause on parking. Someone else looked up how to propose an amendment. One teenager doing a government class project photographed 3 pages for a paper. The binder was used. That was the deepest change of all. On a quiet October evening, Tobias sat on his porch with Jubal. The second maple had lost half its leaves. The first one was nearly bare. Marisol came over with a mug of cider. Amaro walked his own dog down the sidewalk and waved. A bird called from the fence. Tobias thought about the year he had read the binder through for the first time every page, in the warm pool of the pendant lamp at the kitchen table. He did not feel triumphant. He felt steady. That was better. Warner, 2 counties over, made coffee in his small kitchen that same evening. He drank it slowly, alone. He read a book with a pen in his hand. He marked careful underlines. He did not mark red anywhere. He thought about what he had been and what he was becoming. He did not write to Tobias again. He did not need to. He washed his mug and set it in the dish rack and turned out the light. Back on the cul-de-sac, Tobias rose from his porch, stretched the stiffness out of his knee, and walked inside with Jubal at his heel. The pendant lamp was on in the kitchen. The 4-inch binder no longer lived there. He no longer needed it at hand. He poured water for Jubal, set the mug of cider on the counter, and turned out the overhead. In the window above the sink, the new maple stood taller than his screen door. A service dog slept in the corner. A porch light he had not been fined for stayed on against the dark.